will soon mark 10 years since Massachusetts became the first state to legalize same-sex marriage. And as gay rights activists here celebrate that milestone, halfway around the world in Uganda, others are waging a brutal battle for the most basic human rights. In February, longtime Ugandan activist John Abdallah Wambere arrived in Boston on a temporary visa. He had received death threats for being gay and was growing more and more worried about his safety in his home country, where the majority of the population condemns homosexuality. Then, just 3 days after Wambere got here, Uganda's president signed legislation making homosexuality punishable by life in prison. He later shared his personal feelings about gays and lesbians with reporters.
What sort of people are they? How can you go? I never knew what they were doing. That's how I've been told recently that what they do is terrible, disgusting.
John Wambere is now seeking asylum here in the United States. He filed that paperwork yesterday because his temporary visa expires at midnight tonight. And welcome, John. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So tell me how this all got started. And I know in 2011 you lost a good friend of yours who was beaten to death essentially for being homosexual. What happened to him? What prompted it?
We totally believe that part of David's murder was actually because of the increased media outings and the negative report and hate speeches that came from the religious evangelists.
So you're saying because the media was outing people?
Yes.
Actually, we have a newspaper here, which I found shocking, that is the newspaper complicit with the government? Ugandan Homo's cabinet list. Why would the newspaper print this? It's one thing for the government, and that's you, circle there. Why would the newspapers be complicit with this?
It is because for the longest time, we know very well that Uganda has no laws that legalize same-sex relationships, and it has been seen as a taboo or a Western import or culture because homosexuality, they believe, is not African. And the media has not been balanced in its reporting. It has been part of the media to smear hate campaigns on same-sex relations.
How did you stay safe while you were there? I mean, that newspaper came out after you left, but how did you stay safe when you were there?
I've been living under a lot of fear. At times I have had to stay home and not do my work as I should have done normally. And if I did it, then probably I would do it under tension, with a lot of illusions going on in my mind, imagining the police walked in or somebody walked in and pointed a finger at you and claimed you had either raped them or had...
Were you outspoken? Did you out yourself? I mean, how did people know you were homosexual?
I never outed myself. The media outed me. They took my story. And after the media outed me, there were a lot of questions that came up about me. Even when I tried to keep it low and denied it. But at one time, I found that I had to live the reality because we were so real and we believed in who we were. We were Ugandans and we were Africans and we were born homosexuals.
All right, let me bring Janson Wu into the discussion. He's a lawyer with gay and lesbian advocates and defenders known as GLAAD. You helped John file for asylum. Now, there's allegedly a deadline at midnight tonight, but you're not really that worried about it right now, are you?
Well, now that we've filed his application, he can legally remain in the country until we get a decision. And we think he has an extremely compelling case given the death threats, the harassment, the physical assaults, the arrests, and the outings that he's had to suffer in Uganda.
Do you file for temporary asylum, permanent asylum? How does it work?
So if the asylum application is granted, then he will be an asylee and be able to work in this country and stay in this country. And after that, after a year, he may be able to apply for permanent residency.
Yeah, so does the United States government recognize this as a sincere form of persecution? I mean, do you have any worry that they'll just say, deny him the extension?
Well, what John has to show is that he has a well-founded fear of persecution, and given the facts of of what he's had to undergo in Uganda, as well as the fact that now, if he were to return to Uganda, he would face life in prison. We think he has an extremely compelling case.
Now, you have an even more complicated story, as I understand it, because you have a daughter, right?
Yes.
A 16-year-old daughter.
Yes.
And what is her situation?
Her situation currently, she's living with a relative. And the best I always did was to try not to involve her in my activism. I always tried to be protective because I dodged visitations. I wasn't there for her fully at school. I was never there for sports day. I was never there on visitation day. So partly I feel that she never got all that she was supposed to get because of my work.
Are you worried about her now?
I'm more worried about her more than ever because right now she's in the hands of people I would call strangers.
Is her mother around?
The mother is around, but she's married to another man.
But she's what?
Married.
Oh, so your daughter doesn't get to live with her?
No.
So, Janson, when John came to you, how did you handle it? Did you say, you know, I'll put you? Are there other people in this exact same situation? I mean, he can't be the only Ugandan, or for that matter, African in this country. That I mean, is this a long history? Have you done this before?
When John came to us, we recognized what a difficult situation he was in and the enormous contribution he's already made to the movement in Uganda. He's been a prominent gay activist for 14 years in Uganda, and that in and of itself is amazing, but it's also put a target on his back. And so that's one of the reasons why we felt so strongly that we had to take his case. Of course, there are many more, unfortunately, in Uganda who desperately need help as well, too.
John, I mean, do you feel like this was stoked there by an evangelical movement? We look, and I know the countries are thousands of miles apart, but what's going on in Nigeria with the Islamic militant extremes, has that really infiltrated Africa in a way?
It has, because a lot of money from the American religious fundamentalists has been put into Uganda in different projects. Perhaps it came early as a way of trying to fight in support of standing with Uganda to fight HIV/AIDS. But today we have seen that the whole agenda has changed, and now it's more of a political issue.
Yeah, because there's somebody here running for office that, you know, has signed on board really with what they've done. With the proclamation in, what's his name, Lively? And he says, well, really what I want to do is educate and reform. He really believes that you can change somebody's sexual orientation.
I think that's one thing that people have to know, that people are born homosexuals. No one would pay a price for being humiliated, the price of leaving your family and being separated from people you have lived with and grown up with, a place you call home, to find yourself in a no man's land.
Well, how do you feel about that? I mean, you're going to be safe in America, but you've left your homeland.
It is so heartbreaking, and for the first time I have felt helpless.
Are you going to find work here? Are you going to continue your activism here?
I think my activism is a passion. To me, I believe it's a calling, and I can still do it from here. And that is exactly what I'm trying to work
From here,
on.
directing it to Africa?
Back to Uganda, yeah. Yeah.
So what's the likely outcome here? Will John be able to get, you know, green card? Can he work here?
If his asylum application is granted, then he will be able to work here. We hope to have that application granted in a matter of months, but it's always difficult to tell. But we do strongly believe that the U.S. does have a role to provide a safer harbor for brave Ugandans like John to continue his work to make things better in Uganda.
How are you surviving now? What are you living on?
Friends, I'm living from handouts.
How does that make you feel?
Because back home I had established myself. I was able to live from my own earnings. But today I look like I'm a beggar. And so it really breaks my heart.
All right, well, good luck to you, John.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you, too. I'm sure
Thank you.
Asylum will come through.